You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
This is Grand Design Podcast with DJ and Jerry Grand, where we link the chains of reason of sports, politics, and culture.
Welcome to the Grand Design Podcast. I'm DJ Grand, and I'm here with my brother Jerry.
Hello.
And also with Ryan temporarily.
Sorry, guys. Hey.
And just to let you know how to get a hold of us, our website is granddesignspodcast.com. You can email us at granddesignspodcast@yahoo. You can follow us at Grand Design Podcast on Instagram and at Grand Designs Pod on Twitter. And now you can find us on iTunes as well as YouTube and Facebook. Just look up Grand Designs Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about who owes an apology to whom, whether the athletes owe the fans an apology at all for bad play or for whole other issues.
Roughly a week ago, the Tampa Bay Lightning exited the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they were the first team to do so by being swept in the first round after having the best season. They tied the best season with the Red Wings. And in doing so, their organization, Tampa Bay, put out an apology, a press release, a statement to the fans, basically saying, we know what you're going through. We're sorry. We can't figure it out. We can't explain it. Some people are taking it as they pretty much told the fans, they took the fans being angry out, and that the Tampa Bay as an organization owed the fans more than just this, but an apology, because the expectation was Stanley Cup or bust.
Well, I think that we got to go on the word or focus on the word owe. I mean, they have a right to apologize. They feel bad for losing when they thought they should have gone further. Fine, great. But as far as owing them an apology, I don't think anything was owed at all.
Did the fans?
To anybody. I don't think the fans are I don't think the word owe is, I mean, out of respect saying that that's what we failed. Okay, we're sorry. But it's not a term where they didn't have to do it.
What about that person that's just a dedicated, they live and die with their club. They lose, they wear it on their sleeve, their colors, and they took that exit hard.
That's fine.
Do they owe them an apology?
I would say no. I would say they don't owe them an apology at all. In fact, the contract basically is you pay for season tickets and you watch a game. Nothing is guaranteed. Wins are not guaranteed. They can't be. So when you fail, you cannot be expected to owe an apology for losing, that is.
It almost goes back to, it's kind of just like when the Wings, who they tied the record with, they, if I'm not mistaken, that year lost in the Stanley Cup final to the Devils, I believe. They got swept out in the final. That was the record-breaking year. I
think so.
But even in doing that, and they went to the Stanley Cup finals, the Wings fan here were just upset. Because the record that at the time was the best regular season record, obviously won the President's Trophy. Then they get swept out because they went through the first 3 rounds. It wasn't even a competition. But when they got to the finals, they got swept, and the fans here didn't take it too good. And the Tampa Bay fans are taking it the same way. They want to know why. They want to hear, hey, we're sorry, it didn't go as planned. And that's pretty much what the statement did. I just didn't think that the Tampa Bay Lightning should even did that. They did. It's their right. They can do that. But it happens. There's got to be a winner and a loser. And for the first time ever in the Stanley Cup history, both 1 seeds lost in the first round.
Well, does Calgary then on the other side owe their fans an apology? I don't think losing demands that you owe them an apology. You don't owe them anything, actually. I mean, all they owe them is a good hockey game or games if we're talking about the playoffs, and that's it. You can't demand outcome on competition.
Well, that just did. There's going to be a winner and a loser. It just so happened that this time, and yeah, the Calgary fans are upset, but the Flames themselves, the organization, did not issue a press release explaining, hey, we're sorry, just unlike what the Tampa Bay organization did. But what about the players? They themselves, I mean, the players of Stamkos, Kucherov, who got suspended, some of the fans, the more the press, not the fans, are saying they owe an explanation and or an apology for their effort, the way they went out in the first round, it just shouldn't have happened. How they were dominating teams in the regular season, and they were, and that was a common thread. Tampa Bay is just going to walk to the playoffs. Not what happened.
Well, they can give excuses, but I don't think it's owed. I think my opinion is they focused too much on that record and it took most of their energy away. If we go back to the 1993 Pittsburgh Penguins, they were about to three-peat, and they cared so much about setting the NHL record for most consecutive wins at the end of the season. I think it was 17 at the time, that all their energy was focused on that. They ended up losing the second round to the New York Islanders. It's the same thing. They didn't owe anyone an apology.
Similar thing happened in Detroit back when Datsuk and Zetterberg played. It was a couple years ago, maybe 4. They had a 26 home game unbeaten streak, and they were looking good. And all the fans were Stanley Cup. We're going to win. We're going to ace through it. It didn't happen that way. They looked sluggish from that point on, and I think you're right. They put all their energy towards that streak, and after they met it, they just all went away. Something like Michigan State. They slayed the dragon with Duke, and after doing that, they just looked flat. They just couldn't come out against Texas Tech like they did against Duke. They were almost like drained. So I think that's what happened to the Lightning. They just got drained from that record. They didn't even beat it. They tied it. They came out in the first round, and they were up 3-0 the first game. I'm just guessing here, but maybe they thought it was going to be a first round walk, 3-0 game 1. But for some reason, after that point, they just it wasn't the same team.
They lost their focus.
So that's where I would ask, do the players now owe individually to the fans who paid, who paid all that money, who bought their jerseys, all the memorabilia, basically supporting them financially?
I don't even think they owe them effort. I mean, it was nice of them to give effort, but it's not owed to them. If anyone who they owe an apology to, it would be to management. It would be to their employers, because they are paying the salary, not the fans. So if there is an apology owed, and I would question that, but if there is one, I would say the players owe it to the management for not giving the proper effort or following the game plan. I don't think it's owed to any of the fans. We've
used the restaurant industry as a comparison to where the fans say they pay the player's salary, and we've said they don't. Our example is when you go to a restaurant, when we go in there to a McDonald's or whatever restaurant, we don't pay their salary. Now, in the same context, when we go to a restaurant, do we expect good service? And if we don't get it, do they owe us an apology for that service that was bad?
I wouldn't say it's owed. If they want to keep customer service up, they would do it on their own because they want to, but I wouldn't say it's owed. In both the restaurant and in the sports, your options are to no longer participate, to no longer buy season tickets, no longer buy team merchandise, no longer watch the games. That's your option. Don't invest your time or money in it anymore. But as far as an apology goes, it's not owed. It's nice, maybe it was nice that Tampa Bay did that, but it wasn't obligated. It wasn't owed. It wasn't necessary.
There's always a breaking point where a fan says, stop, I'm done. I hear a lot of fans that they're Lions free now. I personally do not believe them for 1 second. They're still into the team. They root for the team. They get angry when they lose. They may say they don't care, but they do. But that fan who just cares so much, that passion, as if they're playing for the team or as if they're working for the organization. These are the people who think that these players and the organization, GM, executive vice president, owe them an explanation to why we did not win the whole thing. And only one team wins it. So now I'm hearing that the other 29 teams, how many teams are in the league, owe apologies now.
Look, to me, it's like a drug addiction. That fan you're talking about that cares so much, you need to learn moderation. And there's your problem, because if you care so much that it affects your life that much, the problem is with you, not with the team.
Now, I find this to be just a coincidence, but as I'm coming home from work today, starting to prepare for the podcast, listen to the sports radio, sports talk, and there was a fan who called up and said to the host of the talk show that he owed the Pistons his support. Now, for those who are watching basketball or the Pistons have not been doing a very good job.
Wait a minute. Do you mean Pistons fans owe the support to the Pistons?
Yes. Everyone who's a Pistons fan, you owe your support to them. He called in and told the talk show, you as a Detroiter, as you living in the city, you owe the organization your support. It's almost like I took it as this guy was trying to say, when the president's elected in, whether you like him or not, he's in office. You must respect him and do as he wishes because he's got the office. He was coming from that point that you owe the Pistons your support. And right now, the Pistons are not giving an effort. It's almost a joke.
I think that's apples and oranges. I don't think you may owe the president respect because he is your president, but it's not the same as you owe respect to your team if you're a Detroit fan or you're a resident of Detroit.
So do we owe our local sports team the support? Do we have to support? I mean, this guy basically came out and said, you owe the organization support.
To me, it's a morality issue. Morality is about choice. I mean, in layman's terms, morality is a guide for our choices and actions. And if you take away choice, if you say, I'm obligated to do something, you are taking away the morality of the situation. And to me, there's the problem. There's no free will involved anymore. I am forced to do something, whether you like it or not.
This was brought up because the radio announcer, he's been saying, I'm going back 2 months when the Pistons at the time weren't even in the playoffs, and he was advocating tanking it. We've talked about shows where losses or wins don't mean anything anymore. But he was advocating tank it, get Zion Williamson, have a better season. And what his point was now was he's upset because the Pistons made the playoffs. They're going to get swept out, and they're going to get a mediocre pick. And where do they go next year? Same mediocre, same result. They're in this, they're spinning their wheels in mud kind of thing. And that's when the caller called up and said, I'm done. I don't owe them anything. I owe them nothing. This is the radio host to the Pistons. And I kind of agree with him. He doesn't owe them a darn thing.
You're kind of like playing it both ways there, is saying that they have to do their best to apologize if they don't, but then they have to tank it and do their worst to get a high draft pick. That's playing it both ways.
Yes, it is. And I in a way understand that if the Pistons would have tanked it, they would have had a chance at I think the first top 3 picks in the NBA draft are game changers. You get this game changer, and again, it could be a bust, so it isn't guaranteed. They have a better chance for next season, but now with being the, I think, 18th pick overall, the picks now are so watered down in the next year's NBA draft that the complaint is they're not going to really get a good enough player.
It doesn't matter to me. The end does not justify the means, so it doesn't matter to me.
Kind of got off topic there, but I agree. But getting back to the apologies, now I'm going to give you some individual athletes. Now, some of these, I'm going to tell you right off the bat what I think, and then you can go in to what you think as far as, do they owe the individual athlete, do they owe the fan, the press, who do they owe an apology? And then we start off with Tiger Woods. He went down, I think about 10 years ago, had an affair, he just tanked it mentally for his golf game, correct, affairs. Does he owe his fans? We're not talking about his wife, because I believe his wife, he owes. That's personal. We shouldn't be getting in and telling him about his personal, what he owes his wife. But the fans, does he owe his fans? Does he owe Nike, a big sponsor, and he had more than just one sponsor? Does he owe them an apology for that action?
Well, there's 2 questions there. One is the fans, and the other is his sponsor. If anything, it would be to the sponsor because that is partially paying his salary. I would question it, but maybe that one. As far as the fans go, he owes them absolutely nothing. It comes from a false sense of entitlement that just because you're following them, that that Tiger owes us an apology. The premise is wrong because you're accepting the premise that all athletes are role models, and I don't think that's the case. I don't think you should be a role model. It doesn't necessarily make you a role model if you are an athlete.
In his absence, the PGA Tour suffered in viewership. This last Masters, it was record-breaking because he was in contention. Whenever he was in contention, the ratings spiked. So when he was out of contention and he didn't even show up for these golf tournaments because he was getting his head back together, the PGA and the viewership just tanked it. So does he owe the PGA? Because he's what attracts the viewer, the TV viewer.
If I run with that premise, that means he also owes the Golf Channel an apology. He also owes the major networks an apology.
Advertisers.
I think that's horse hockey. I don't think he owes them anything along that lines. I
agree. Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, paid for the Yankees, paid for the Mariners. He got, I think I could be wrong, Balco. It could be a different one, but he had, a pharmaceutical gentleman created a steroid for him. It was secret. Then he went out and actually recruited other players to take this steroid, performance enhancing drug. And then he came out and he apologized to everybody. Right off the bat, I don't think he owes his fans anything, but I do think he owed the Steinbrenners, the owners, an apology because they paid his salary. He was cheating them, not the fans, not Major League Baseball.
Like I said earlier, if anything, he owes management, which I would say Steinbrenner is management. He doesn't owe the fans a thing. Once again, the false premise of him being a role model. There's your problem. When you accept someone who is not of high character as a role model and it comes crashing down the reality, whose fault is it? That person who was the pseudo role model or the person who was looking up to them? I say it's the fault of the person who was looking up to them. You chose the wrong person to look up to.
Who's the fool? The fool or the person following the fool?
It goes along the lines. You're right. It goes along the lines of define what a hero is. Because I don't think hitting a ball that comes at you 90 miles an hour makes you a hero. I don't think skating with a stick and shooting a puck into a net makes you a hero. I don't think dribbling a ball and putting it into a rim 10 feet high makes you a hero. I think they have the wrong definition of what a hero is. And so when that person ends up becoming human, doing something human, all of a sudden it's bad. They owe us an apology. I totally disagree. They're not heroes.
For some reason, I don't know why press, media, our sports figures are heroes. I don't know. I don't get that when it should be firefighters, first responders, astronauts, the ones that lived dangerously. They should be the heroes, not, I agree, not with athletes. Now, this next person here, it's a little bit different. Kobe Bryant. Now, he had an affair, but this affair was more, he got out, he was up for criminal charges in a rape in Colorado. So in this situation, yes, his wife, it's personal. The criminal part, that kind of takes it to does it take it to a different level? I'll ask you that first.
Of course it does, but that doesn't necessarily mean he owes the fans an apology for it. Yes, it takes it to that's like saying because, Plaxico Burgess shot himself in the leg. Am I correct? When he was on the Giants, he was from Michigan State and went to New York Giants. Because he was in a criminal case, he owes the fans an apology? No. And just because it's criminal,
I only say that only because it was a rape accusation. Now, he was acquitted. He got off, so technically, I guess he didn't do it. But he was accused of rape. It's I don't want to say a behavior, but the lack of respect for women. It went beyond just the fan. He doesn't know the fan, but
he may owe society something if he was found guilty. Just as someone who murdered somebody,
and he wasn't, so okay.
Just as someone who murdered somebody owes society a debt, but that debt does not transfer over to fans. And I think it's two separate issues totally.
I agree. Now, again, we got another one for PEDs, Mark McGwire. Except this one here, I'm going to go with Mark McGwire. When he was doing it, Major League Baseball fully were aware of what was happening. They did not care. They, matter of fact, turned their head because the ratings were through the roof. What him and Sosa were doing, as a matter of fact, a banned drug now, Adderall, was not banned when he was on his home run binge. He had it above his locker for everyone to see.
We talked about this in an earlier podcast. I think the reason the Major League Baseball overlooked it is because of the earlier strike and that tanked the ratings. And this was the first series of events that brought the ratings back up, that put interest back into
I heard it
baseball.
As a reference to how Babe Ruth saved Major League Baseball after the Black Sox. It's the same thing here. McGwire and Sosa saved baseball, brought the viewers back. And the viewers came back huge. In just ungodly numbers, they were seeing record attendance. Whenever McGwire and Sosa visited these parks, they were selling out. They turned an eye, knowing full well they were taking it. Then when the reporter brought it up, somehow from the camera, it became, the rules now are different. Suspensions are 82 games, even a year the second time around. So McGwire, I don't think he owes anyone. I think Major League Baseball owes an apology.
Well, I think they started making it, performance enhancing drugs illegal in baseball like in 1993. And that was before the strike. So they never enforced it. And the problem is if they had forced it all along, Major League Baseball would be on the moral high ground. But because they didn't and they allowed it to happen just for the ratings, that's why they were wrong.
I'll use the Adderall as an example. It was not on their banned substance list. It is now. So they knew what McGwire was doing. Then all of a sudden, when the issue was brought forth by the media, then it became, now they put it on the ban list, and then the suspensions were just increased enormously. The next one is Pete Rose. And I think he owes the fans an apology for gambling on the Reds.
Why?
Look, when you go in, if you're playing for that, you're coaching that team, you know the pitchers. Especially if you're, I want to say this the right way. If Pete Rose was betting on the Reds to win, okay, he's loyal, he's really thinking his team will win. But when it's to lose, because you're controlling the bullpen and you know who's not going to go tonight because of rest, I think he owes the fans because he's manipulating because of a bet that he made against the Reds. And there was evidence that he bet against the Reds. I got a problem with a person that I would go and pay to watch him play, be a coach or whatever, and he's got a bet against it for the team to lose.
That doesn't necessarily mean he was trying to make them lose. So let's go right there. If he was actually trying to make them lose, yes, he was morally wrong. But that doesn't mean he owes the fans an apology. Once again, that would be to management, his boss, his employer. That's who he owes the apology to.
Not make them lose. It's almost like these sports DraftKings and FanDuel when they were winning the first couple of weeks because the insiders had numbers that nobody else had. So he knows that this pitcher, this reliever, is not going in the game tonight. He knows that, and because of that, he's going to bet that the odds are they're going to lose tonight. I just have a huge problem. And yeah, if I'm paying to go watch you play, and I'm not paying you to go bet for you to lose, that was just.
But if he still tried the best, did he do this as a coach or as a player?
Coach.
That's what I thought. If he tried his best to still coached for a win, and he just thought odds are we're going to lose, and he bet on it, it may have been wrong to bet on the game, but that doesn't mean he owes the fans an apology.
I'd have a hard time.
It's sort of like insider trading.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because if he's got $1 million on a loss, I have a hard time believing he's going to put the lineup in that he's going to pull this win out.
But that doesn't mean he did it. I agree. He's vulnerable when he does that. Absolutely. But if he just bet and then still tried to win, so what?
Now, the next one, Michael Vick, dog fighting. Now, I have dogs. A lot of people have dogs, so this one I took a little bit differently. And for that behavior, I think he owed society an apology. This is what I'm going to say. Yes,
society's different than fans. I mean, because it's the criminal activity. Absolutely, he owes a debt to society. Fine, but does he owe anything to the fans? The only he owes an apology to is those dogs, those poor dogs that suffer from that. That's who he owes the apology to. Yes, they're not human. Yes, they will not understand the apology. But if anything, if any entity is owed an apology, it would be those dogs. I don't think he owes the fans anything.
Or the owner.
What did the dog fighting have to do with him playing football?
He wasn't focused on football. He was focused on something that was not good.
If that's the case, then any side business for any professional athlete is bad because they're not focusing. They're focused on their business and not. I don't think that's a legitimate argument.
That has been brought up, that even the good businesses are taking their focus away. So they owe an apology to the fans because they were worrying about business here and not the game.
So when you work for your employer and then you go have a side business because you're focused on a side business and not your primary employment, you owe your primary employer an apology?
Some would say yes, because you need to be loyal to them and you're working, you're employed for them, and they are the primary work. The secondary ones should suffer, not them.
As long as it's not happening on your 8 hours, 10 hours for the primary employment, you don't owe anything. I'm an individualist, and you're basically coming from the premise by saying I owe them an apology for my off time. You're saying I owe the collective, that I have no individual rights, that I'm basically a slave to the employer. I totally disagree with that. They have every right to have their side businesses. Like I said, as far as Michael Vick goes, he owes those dogs an apology.
I agree. Michael Phelps. Now, this one, I'll just say no. It's for marijuana. After he won his record-breaking gold medal in the Olympics, he got caught at a party. The iPhone nowadays record everything. He got busted with the bong. He came out and he apologized, I think, to everybody because he did something that I don't think he was remorseful. He was just sorry he got caught doing it.
I don't even think he needed to be sorry. It's his business. If the marijuana would adversely affect his play, he would have lost the medals. It would have hurt him. It didn't hurt any fans. So I don't think he owed anybody other than maybe if he had sponsors. I don't know if he did or not.
Oh, he does.
No,
He
I
does.
don't know if he did at the time.
Oh, he
And
did.
if he did,
He did.
they're sort of like employers. And if they have an agreement that you don't do that, then he owes him an apology. But I don't think he owes a fan not one iota of an apology.
This was at the height of his record-breaking Olympic gold medal, so he had many, many sponsors. The next one, MSU's, Michigan State University's Tom Izzo. The media went crazy that he did not apologize for how he berated. I don't even say berate, because I'm going to say how he coached a player. Got in his face,
He yelled
went
at
after him. Yeah, he yelled at him. And look, when we were in sports, we got yelled at a lot worse, and we were just told that makes you man, makes you better. But yet they went off that he owes this player, Aaron Henry, an apology. When they talked to the player, he said, no, I thrive off that intensity, that correction. So he actually liked Tom Izzo for doing that. And I got to agree with Izzo because he did come on the press conference and he refused to give an apology. So I got to give him credit for that. And he even said, to the media, you guys crack me up. Whenever anyone tries to hold anyone accountable, you make up all these excuses. I tell you what, if I was your boss and you're an article, I'd hold you accountable. So I kind of agree with him there, 100%.
No, kind of. I totally agree with him. He was absolutely right. And once again, he said exactly what I'm saying. He doesn't owe him an apology. He doesn't owe MSU fans an apology for their insensitivity of watching someone be yelled at. My gosh, grow up.
I agree. The next one is Andy Pettit. That's the PEDs. I think it's the same thing we talked before with the other Major League Baseball players. I don't think he owes anyone but the Yankees an apology for that. Not even baseball.
I agree.
The next one, Mike Tyson for biting the ear off of Evander Holyfield. Now that one, I'm going to say yes, he owed all those people who came for that fight and they paid. And those tickets around ringside are thousands of dollars, and he goes and basically just, I can't recall, it was early in the fight, bites a guy ear off, fight's over. They went, I paid for a boxing match, not for someone to do some savage act and bite his ear off. So I think that I didn't, but if I had bought a ticket, it doesn't matter the value. I'm just brought up that the ringside are very expensive, ringside seats. I just spent this money. Yeah, what are you doing, you fool?
All right, let's
boxing.
run with that premise. I think it's flawed. So a knockout in the first 5 seconds. So he owes you an apology because you paid that much money for ringside.
That's boxing. I paid for that, and yes, I paid to see that guy. I didn't pay for you to come and see. I'm not paying to see you bite someone's ear off. That is not boxing. I can't even tell you what it is. I paid to, see Mike Tyson knock him out because at that time he was knocking everybody out. And yes, that's what sold the tickets.
But your argument was that it was too short. I didn't pay.
Okay, let me go back then. I mean, the short, because it was short of the game. Whether it was 15th round, biting his ear off is an act that is just, it's savage. It's not even part of boxing. So
I agree with that.
So I made a mistake by saying it was early. Because yes, that first round, I'm paying to see him knock him out in the first round, in the first 30 seconds. Yes, I'm paying for that. I am not paying to bite his ear off in the first, second, 13th, or 15th round.
Well, then that would go with any illegal act. Tripping, hitting below the belt. I mean, I don't think an apology is owed to the fans. I want to emphasize that. He owes Evander Holyfield an apology for biting his ear off. Absolutely.
It's not quite
but not to the fans.
It isn't quite as savage, but Marchand licking the hockey players, that's just the behavior that, he owes an apology for such behavior.
Wait, to whom? Does he owe an apology to the people he licked? Absolutely.
The players,
to the fans?
No. The player that he did that to start. But if I'm coming to watch a hockey game, I'm not coming to watch you lick other players.
I blame the culture. I blame the culture on this because the culture says you should be a thug. You should act like that in hockey now in that context. You should act that way. Whatever to get under the player's skin. I hear that all the time. And when I played, I heard that. And I think that's the culture. It's the culture's fault. He doesn't owe Marchand. I don't like the guy as a player. I don't know him as a person, but I do not like him as a player. But he doesn't owe anyone other than the people he licked an apology. Nobody.
I'm going to give you there. I'm going to agree. Tim Tebow. He lost to Ole Miss in 2008. Again, that's a football game. I don't think he owes anyone, the alumni.
Well, he came on apology because that particular apology was because they were supposed to be undefeated that season. And he lost that game and he came on apologizing for it. I mean, just to give you some definition on what happened to that. That's why.
It's hard to go undefeated. Now, Mr. Tebow is very religious, and maybe he took that personally, and that's where he felt he owed them an apology. But it's not easy to do that. And when you're at that time when Florida was that good, look, these teams, you got a bullseye on your back. It's kind of like Michigan State is jealous of Michigan because wherever Michigan goes, that's the other team's Super Bowl. Michigan State does not like hearing that.
I equate this to what we've started talking this out about Tampa Bay owing an apology. I don't think Tebow, for the loss, just like Tampa Bay lost, owed the apology. If he tried his best and the outcome wasn't what it was expected, it's not his fault. It's the way the cookie crumbles, the way the dice fell.
This next one may or may not be tricky. Olympian Marion Jones. Now, this is a PED one, but it's for the Olympics. So does she owe the American citizens who were, I don't even know if they cheered for her, how you could say the sponsors, does she owe the country her apology for doing that?
Do Army men, when they're off fighting and they take drugs, do they owe anyone an apology for that?
I don't know.
Because that's for the country.
He's in war, though.
No, but that's for the country. I'm trying to stick on that premise because you're saying she played for the country. Well, those guys are fighting for the country.
Yes.
So do they owe an apology if they take drugs?
That's life and death.
But that's not the question. It's irrelevant. Do they owe an apology for taking drugs? They're working for the country.
Obviously, they don't because that's a whole
No,
different,
they don't. And
they're
neither
surviving.
does she.
And
At the most, she owed her sponsors. And I guess she paid for it because she lost her medals. So that's all she owed.
That I would
was
agree.
was turning her medals in.
I'd
But she
agree.
didn't owe an apology to anybody
Janet Jackson for the wardrobe malfunction.
during the Super Bowl.
Correct.
It's the only reason this is in context. I thank her for it. I don't think she owes a single apology to anybody.
Well, might
In
wanna
fact,
thank-
I wish she would
you
have
might
showed
wanna-
the other side.
You might want to thank Timberlake. He was the one that
Well,
did that.
It doesn't matter. She was in on it, and I thank them both for it.
And the last one on the list is the Cubs fan, Steve Bartman. Now, this poor guy, I think the Cubs fans owe him an apology. I don't think he owed an apology whatsoever, but if I'm not mistaken, didn't he apologize?
He came out and apologized because he was made to feel bad because he ruined I think it was in the championship series. I don't even think
Yeah,
it was
it
the World
was.
Series.
Yep.
And he was made to feel bad because he ruined their chances to break that curse at
he
the
was
time.
more than made him. He moved out. It was bad. They ostracized that poor guy. He didn't deserve what he got. That's why the fans owe him an apology. He doesn't owe them one.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
reversed.
And foul ball is fair play. I mean, it was I'm not mistaken. He didn't reach over into fair play. That was in foul territory when he hit it, right?
Correct. And there were like 8 other fans trying to go for it too. So
That's fair game. That's fair game. I mean, that's the way. That's the rules
that
of
was-
playing. If you get the ball, you get to keep it in
That
foul
was-
territory.
that was just the Cub fans being poor losers.
If he did, in fact, reach over into fair territory, then I would say
Well, that's-
he may owe the Cubs organization, but not the fans.
That's player interference, fan interference. There's a rule for that now, but that wasn't the case. Now, our last one is a little bit interesting, and I kind of like this, is did Steve Yzerman owe Detroit the fans to return? Now, this was real interesting because after the Lightning lost and was out, Yzerman became a free agent, go anywhere he wants. There were rumors that he was going to go to New York for the president of operations job. And in doing so, it just ignited this debate that he owed Detroit to come here. When in fact, at the time, this is about a week ago, there wasn't even a job open at the time for him to come here in any capacity, be it senior vice president, GM, scout, whatever. It was not there. Now listen to Talk Show. These fans, one fan said he was going to burn Joe Louis down. I think he met in Little Caesar Arena. But in doing so, they basically said that Yzerman owed them. He had to come here. He lost his choice. The radio host actually said if Yzerman did choose to go to New York, he would have been upset. He used the word pissed. I'd be pissed at Yzerman. A job wouldn't have been offered to him from the Wings, and he takes it somewhere else. And they were upset with him. So I found that to be interesting. Now, before that, I probably should start with this. Look, he belongs here. He is the captain. He's known for, it's a perfect fit almost. But at the same time, some of these fans, I don't know if they have delusion or illusions of grandeur, but they think the Cubs coming here automatically, and that's not the case. But did Yzerman owe this city or these fans to be the GM?
First of all, I want to say, if Steve Yzerman wanted to come here and not go to not go to New York and take the lesser GM job over the president's job of the Rangers, good for him. He did what he wanted to do. It was his choice. He wanted to be with family. Good for him. But as far as him owing anyone to come here. He didn't owe anyone a damn thing. He should have been able to go wherever he wants. Doesn't matter if at one time he wore a Detroit Red Wing jersey. That's retired. That's hanging up in the rafters now. It's no longer part of the current situation. He didn't owe a single fan anything, not even an explanation to why he would have went to the Rangers.
Again, I'm glad he's here as a GM, but I really wanted to see him take the president operations job, only to see what the reaction would be, because they literally expected Yzerman to apologize to them because he didn't come to Detroit. Even though the position wasn't here, wasn't offered at the time, and the Wings, look, they created this position to get him here. They did not want to see him, which was a wise move. They didn't want to see Yzerman go to any other team. But had the Wings chose not to do that, they were happy with Holland. I think he still had a couple of years left on his GM contract. If Yzerman took the New York Ranger job, would he owe anyone here an apology because he didn't come to the Wings?
I don't think so. I mean, here's some speculation on my part. I think that whole Ranger president thing was set up to draw interest for Detroit, to say Yzerman could end up going to the Rangers. So you guys better decide what you're going to do. It's sort of lighting a fire under their butt. It's total speculation. I have no evidence of this. It's a guess on my part, but I think it would help get him to solidify to come to Detroit.
Whoever did that, well played, because I think he was known for being a good GM. They're bringing up Team Canada, how he built that team, how he built the Lightning into a winner. So if that was the case and they made the Detroit act, well played. I was more interested in the fact that, yeah, look, I want Yzerman to come here. I'm happy he's here. But these fans, they literally, and it went back to when he first resigned with the Lightning and he was an advisor. They were saying he was already working for the Wings. He was coming here. It was a done deal. Now he's done with Tampa Bay. He's coming to Detroit. And this is back in the season just started when he resigned. So again, I bring this up in the fact that if he didn't come here, I just found it interesting how these fans just felt he was compelled. Under no circumstances could he go anywhere else. This was the only place he had to go.
Once again, that takes the morality out of it. He no longer has a choice. Just because at one time he wore a Red Wing jersey, he has to come here. There's no morality in that. There's no choice. There's no obligation, no moral obligation whatsoever for him to have come here. For anything, for any money, for less money, for more money, it should be up to him. And if he wanted to come here, great, good for him. But I don't think he owes the Red Wing fan base nothing.
I agree with you 100%, but there are some people who just disagree with you 100%. That he owed this city, he had to come here.
Well, that's coming from a sense of entitlement. That we're entitled to him just because he used to be the captain. It's almost making him a slave.
That's what.
Because you don't have a choice. You must come here. That is a form of slavery. So I think the Detroit fans who did react that way were wrong. And I think it was emotions. They were emotional because they loved when he brought those championships to the Red Wings, and they wanted it back. And they want that love, that way they felt when he brought those championships to Detroit. They want to feel it again. I think they were coming from a place of emotion.
I really wanted to see him not come to Detroit and take another job, only for the reaction of the fans. They would have gotten what they deserved for being so arrogant, thinking that he had to come here. There was no question. He had no choice in the matter. I agree with what you're saying. But I wanted to see it go the other way because these fans, I wanted to see this person burn down he said JLA, but the Little Caesars because they couldn't play anymore. They were saying they're going to riot. That's why I wanted to see. It didn't happen. He's in Detroit, so all worked out.
Yes, mostly I think that those were empty threats. Once again, coming from emotion, they were upset, and so therefore they just vented. Okay, so you've been listening to the Grand Designs podcast. Just to let you know where you can get in touch with us once again. Our website is granddesignspodcast.com. Our email is granddesignspodcast@yahoo. You can now get us at iTunes. You can subscribe there. You can subscribe at YouTube and on Facebook. And you can follow us on Instagram at Grand Designs Podcast. And you can follow us on Twitter at Grand Designs Pod. This is the Grand Designs Podcast. Who are you listening to?